1. Bakelite. In 1907, Leo Hendrik Bakelite, a Belgian scientist working in New York, discovered a revolutionary new synthetic material. His invention, which he named Bakelite, was one of enormous technological importance and effectively launched the modern plastics industry. The term plastics come from the Greek plastein, meaning to mold. Some plastics are derived from natural sources. Some are semi-synthetic, the result of a chemical action on a natural substance, and some are entirely synthetic, that is, chemically engineered from the constitutions of coal or oil. Some are thermoplastic, which means that, like candle wax, they melt and when heated they can be reshaped. Others are thermostatic, like eggs; they cannot revert to their original viscous state, and their shape is thus fixed forever. Bakelite has the distinction of being the first fully synthetic thermosetting plastic. The history of today's plastics begins with the discovery of a series of semi-synthetic thermoplastic materials in the mid-19th century. The impetus behind the development of these early plastics was generated by a number of factors: immense technological progress in this domain of chemistry, coupled with wider cultural changes and the pragmatic need to find acceptable substitute for dwindling supplies of luxury materials such as tortoiseshell and ivory. Bakelite's interest in plastics began in 1885 when, as a young chemistry student in Belgium, he embarked on research into phenolic resins, the group of sticky substances produced when phenol (carboxylic acid) combines with an aldehyde, a volatile fluid similar to alcohol. She soon abandoned the subject, however, only returned to some years later. By 1905, he was a wealthy New Yorker, having recently made his fortune with the invention of a new photographic paper, which Bakelite had been busily amassing dollars. Some new advances had been made in the development of plastics. The years 1899 and 19 had seen the patenting of the first semi-synthetic thermosetting material that could be manufactured on an industrial scale. In purely scientific terms, Bakelite's major contribution to the field is not so much the actual discovery of the material to which he gave his name, but rather the method by which reaction between phenol and formaldehyde could be controlled, thus making possible its preparation on a commercial basis. On 13 July 1907, Bakelite took out his famous patent describing his preparation, the essential features of which are still in use today. The original patent outlined a three-stage process which phenol and formaldehyde from wood or coal were initially combined under vacuum inside a large egg-shaped kettle. The result was a resin known as Novalac, which became soluble and malleable when heated. The resin was allowed to cool in shallow trays until hardened, then broke up and ground into powder. Other substances were introduced, including fillers such as wood flour, asbestos, or cotton, which increased the strength and moisture resistance. Catalysis substance to speed up the reaction between two chemicals without joining to either. And hexa, a compound of ammonia and formaldehyde, which supplied the additional formaldehyde necessary to form a thermosetting resin. The resin was then left to cool and harden and ground up to a second time. The resulting granular powder was a raw bakelite, ready to be made in a vast range of manufactured objects. In the last stage, the heated bakelite was poured into a hollow mold of the required shape and subjected to extreme heat and pressure, thereby setting its form for life. The design of bakelite objects, everything from earrings to television sets, was governed to a large extent by technical requirements of the molding process. The object could not be designed so that it was locked up into the mold, therefore difficult to extract. A common general rule was that objects should taper towards the deepest part of the mold, and if necessary the product was molded in separate pieces. Molds had to be carefully designed so that the molten bakelite would flow evenly and completely into the mold. Sharp corners proved impractical and thus avoided, giving rise to the smooth, streamlined style. Popular in the 1930s, the thickness of the mold was so crucial, thick walls took longer to cool and harden, a factor which had to be considered by the designer in order to make the most efficient use of machines. Bakelite's invention, although treated with disdain in its early years, went on to enjoy an unparalleled popularity which lasted through the first half of the 20th century. It became the wonder of the product of a new world of industrial expansion, the material of a thousand uses, being both non-porous and heat-resistant. Bakelite kitchen goods were promoted as germ-free and sterilizable. Electrical manufacturers seized on this insulating properties, and consumers everywhere relished in its dazzling array of shades. The lighting there now lasts and no longer restricted to the wood stones and damp browns. Of the plastic area had fell from the favor again during the 1950s. It was despised and destroyed in vast quantities. How recently, however, it was experiencing something of a renaissance with renewed demand for original backlight objects in the collectors' marketplace and museum society and dedicated individual once again appreciating the style of its innovative material.